Living alone doesn't make a man bitter. It makes him honest. Honest about his thoughts. Honest about his needs. Honest about what he once confused with love. Many people assume that when a man lives alone for a long time, he becomes cold, distant, or disconnected from women. Stoic wisdom suggests something very different. Solitude doesn't harden a man. It clarifies him. When there is no constant noise, no distractions, no need to perform or impress, a man is forced to face himself without illusion. And through that process, his perception of women begins to change. Not in anger, not in resentment, but in clarity. Today, we'll explore how prolonged solitude reshapes a man's view of women, how expectations fall away, how validation loses its grip, and how peace becomes more valuable than chemistry. This isn't about rejecting women. It's about no longer needing them to fill an inner void. If you value calm over chaos, clarity over illusion, and wisdom over impulse, stay with me and comment below. Clarity over illusion. 1. He stops idealizing women. When a man lives alone long enough, one of the first things that changes is projection. Before solitude, many men don't see women clearly. They see ideas shaped by loneliness, by desire, by unmet emotional needs. A woman becomes a symbol of comfort, validation, meaning, or escape. And when someone carries that much symbolic weight, they stop being human. Stoic wisdom warns against this. The Stoics believed suffering often comes not from people themselves, but from the expectations we attach to them. Solitude strips those expectations away. When a man is no longer afraid of being alone, he no longer needs to idealize. He stops placing women on pedestals, but he also stops demonizing them. Both are distortions. Idealization is not admiration. It's a lack of clarity. And clarity only arrives when loneliness is no longer something to run from. Living alone teaches a man something uncomfortable but freeing. No one is here to complete him. No one is responsible for his inner state. That realization changes perception. He no longer looks at women as answers to his restlessness or solutions to his dissatisfaction. He begins to see them as they are, complex, flawed, human. Not saviors, not threats, just people. Stoicism values this kind of seeing, to see reality as it is without adding fantasy or fear. When idealization fades, so does disappointment. Many relationships fail not because of incompatibility, but because one person was asked to carry expectations they never agreed to. Solitude removes that burden. A man who is comfortable alone doesn't rush toward attraction. He observes. He notices character over charm, consistency over excitement, behavior over promises. This doesn't make him colder. It makes him calmer. He no longer confuses intensity with depth or chemistry with compatibility. And because of that, his interest becomes more selective. Not because he feels superior, but because he is no longer desperate. Stoic wisdom teaches that desire clouds judgment. Solitude clears it. When a man no longer needs someone to fill silence, he can finally listen. And when he listens, he sees more accurately. This is the first shift. Not rejection, not resentment, just the end of illusion. In the next section, we'll explore how solitude changes something even deeper. Why a man who knows how to be alone no longer seeks validation through attention, and how that quietly transforms the way he relates to women and to himself. 2. He no longer seeks validation through attention. When a man lives alone long enough, attention loses its power over him. Before solitude, attention often feels essential. A message reply, a smile, a sign of interest. Not because he is weak, but because attention becomes proof of worth. Stoic wisdom sees this clearly. When your sense of value depends on being noticed, you are no longer free. Living alone removes this dependency. In solitude, there is no audience, no one to impress, no one to perform for. At first, this feels uncomfortable. Silence exposes insecurity. Stillness reveals habits of seeking reassurance. But over time, something shifts. A man begins to experience himself without reflection from others, and that changes everything. He no longer needs attention to feel real. He no longer interprets interest as validation. He no longer confuses being desired with being worthy. Stoicism teaches that worth is internal, measured by character, not reaction. Solitude turns that idea into lived experience. When a man learns to sit alone without distraction or validation, he stops outsourcing his self-esteem. This changes how he sees women. He no longer looks for attention to confirm his value. He doesn't chase signals. He doesn't overinterpret interest. He doesn't feel diminished by indifference. Attention becomes information, not nourishment. And this creates a subtle but powerful calm. A man who doesn't need attention doesn't rush. He listens. He observes. He chooses. He becomes less reactive to attraction and more attentive to alignment. This doesn't make him distant. It makes him self-contained. Stoic wisdom values this state deeply. When your inner stability is not dependent on others, you stop negotiating your behavior for approval. You don't perform confidence. You don't chase interest. You don't fear being overlooked. And because of that, your presence becomes grounded. Ironically, this is when attention often returns, but it no longer controls you. A man who knows how to be alone doesn't interpret a lack of attention as rejection. He sees it as neutrality, and neutrality is peaceful. This shift also removes resentment. When attention is no longer expected, it cannot be withheld. When validation is no longer needed, it cannot be used as leverage. This is freedom, not from women, but from the need to be seen through them. Solitude teaches a man to witness himself, and once he can do that, attention becomes optional, not a requirement, not a measure of worth, just a detail. In the next section, we'll explore how this inner stability leads to another major shift. Why a man who has learned to live alone begins to value peace over chemistry, and why that changes everything about the relationships he chooses. 3. He values peace over chemistry. Before solitude, many men mistake intensity for connection. Strong emotions feel meaningful. High chemistry feels alive. Ups and downs feel like passion. Stoic wisdom takes a different view. Intensity is not depth, and chaos is not intimacy. When a man lives alone long enough, his nervous system begins to settle. He learns what it feels like to wake up without tension, to return home without emotional noise, to sit in silence without discomfort. And once peace becomes familiar, something important happens. He becomes less impressed by chemistry, not because attraction disappears, but because stability becomes visible. Stoicism teaches that tranquility is a sign of alignment, not boredom. A man who knows how to be alone no longer seeks relationships that disrupt his inner order. He doesn't confuse unpredictability with excitement. He doesn't chase emotional highs that require emotional crashes. Instead, he pays attention to how he feels after interactions. Calm or drained, centered or anxious, clear or confused. Peace becomes the metric. This changes how he sees women. He is still capable of attraction, still capable of interest, still capable of desire. But attraction alone is no longer enough. He looks for emotional safety, for consistency, for mutual respect. Not because he fears challenge, but because he understands the cost of disorder. Stoic philosophy emphasizes harmony of the soul. Anything that repeatedly disturbs that harmony must be examined carefully. Solitude teaches this lesson gently but firmly. When a man has learned to enjoy quiet evenings, simple routines, and internal stability, he becomes protective of that state. He no longer sacrifices peace for excitement. He no longer tolerates volatility for connection. And this does not make him rigid. It makes him discerning. He understands that a relationship should add to life, not consume it. Chemistry without peace is exhausting. Peace without chemistry is empty. Stoicism does not reject attraction. It asks for balance. The man who has lived alone long enough can finally sense that balance. He stops romanticizing struggle. He stops equating love with emotional labor. He stops believing that discomfort is the price of connection. This is not emotional avoidance. It is emotional maturity. And once peace becomes the priority, his choices become quieter, but wiser. In the next section, we'll explore another critical shift. Why solitude leads a man to see women not as solutions to inner unrest, but as equals and companions, and how that reframes connection entirely. 4. He sees women as equals, not solutions. When a man lives alone long enough, he stops looking for someone to fix his inner state. Before solitude, many men unknowingly treat relationships as emotional outsourcing. Loneliness is eased by companionship. Confusion is softened by attention. Restlessness is distracted by attraction. This is rarely intentional. It's unconscious. Stoic wisdom speaks clearly here. No one else is responsible for the order of your inner world. Solitude forces a man to confront this truth. There is no partner to stabilize his mood, no one to absorb his frustration, no one to carry emotional weight on his behalf. At first, this feels heavy, but over time, it becomes liberating. A man learns to regulate himself, to sit with discomfort, to resolve tension internally. And once he does, his perception of women changes fundamentally. He no longer sees them as emotional solutions, not as rescues from loneliness, not as sources of meaning, not as stabilizers of identity. He sees them as equals, as independent individuals with their own inner worlds, their own struggles, their own responsibilities. This shift is important. When someone is seen as a solution, they are burdened. When someone is seen as an equal, they are respected. Stoicism values partnership, but only when it is voluntary, balanced, and grounded. A man who has learned to live alone does not enter connection out of need. He enters out of choice. This changes the tone of everything. There is less pressure, less expectation, less silent demand. He does not ask a woman to complete what he has not built. He does not seek regulation from someone else's presence. He brings stability with him. And because of that, he can finally offer something real. Not dependency, not projection, but presence. Stoic wisdom teaches that true companionship comes from two whole individuals, not two halves trying to compensate for emptiness. Solitude prepares a man for this. It teaches him to be responsible for his emotions, his direction, his peace. And when he meets a woman from that place, the dynamic is clean. No rescue narratives, no hidden contracts, no unspoken expectations. Just mutual respect. This doesn't mean relationships become emotionless. They become lighter, because neither person is being asked to carry what isn't theirs. This is one of the quiet gifts of solitude. It removes the need to be saved, and with it, the need to save. In the next and final shift, we'll explore what happens when a man fully integrates solitude, why he chooses alignment over attachment, and why he would rather walk alone than betray his inner clarity. 5. He chooses solitude over misalignment. After enough time alone, a man develops a different fear. Not the fear of being alone, but the fear of betraying his inner clarity. Before solitude, many men tolerate misalignment to avoid loneliness. They stay in conversations that drain them. They accept dynamics that disturb their peace. They compromise values for connection. Stoic wisdom views this as misplaced fear. Loneliness is uncomfortable, but misalignment is corrosive. Living alone long enough teaches a man the difference. He learns that silence is not emptiness. that evenings alone can be restorative, that inner order is fragile and valuable. Once this is understood, his standards change. He no longer asks, "Will I end up alone?" He asks, "Will this pull me away from myself?" That question becomes the filter. This doesn't make him rigid or avoidant. It makes him selective. He's open, but not careless. Interested, but not compromising. Present, but not dependent. Stoicism teaches that it is better to walk alone than to walk in a direction you know is wrong. Solitude removes the urgency that once distorted choice. When you know how to be alone, you don't rush toward connection. You wait for alignment. This changes how a man sees women. He doesn't evaluate them by attraction alone. He doesn't ignore red flags to avoid emptiness. He doesn't force compatibility where it doesn't exist. He pays attention to harmony, to how conversation feels after it ends, to whether peace increases or erodes, to whether values quietly align or slowly clash. And if misalignment appears, he does not dramatize it. He does not accuse. He does not argue. He steps back, not out of resentment, but out of respect for inner order. Stoic wisdom calls this self-command, the ability to leave calmly what once would have been chased anxiously. This is the final transformation solitude offers. A man no longer proves his worth by who stays. He measures it by how faithfully he stays aligned with himself. And from that place, connection becomes optional, but meaningful. Because when solitude is no longer feared, compromise loses its leverage. A man who can be alone does not cling. He chooses, and what he chooses is no longer driven by need, but by clarity. In the final section, we'll bring all 5 shifts together and close with a Stoic reflection on why solitude, when lived honestly, does not separate a man from women, but from illusion. Final reflection. Solitude separates. Illusion from truth. Living alone does not teach a man to reject women. It teaches him to stop using them to escape himself. Through solitude, illusion falls away. He stops idealizing. He stops seeking validation. He stops confusing intensity with connection. He stops asking others to regulate what is his responsibility. And what remains is clarity. Not emotional distance, but emotional ownership. Stoic wisdom reminds us that the man who can sit with himself without distraction is no longer desperate for completion. He does not chase. He does not cling. He does not compromise his inner order to avoid silence. He chooses. He chooses peace over chaos, alignment over attachment, truth over comfort. From that place, his view of women becomes simpler and more respectful. Not saviors, not enemies, not solutions, just human beings, to be met freely or not at all. This is what solitude offers when lived honestly, not isolation, but independence of mind. And when a man reaches that state, connection becomes lighter, cleaner, and more real, because it is no longer driven by fear. If this reflection resonated with you, leave a comment with the shift that stood out most. And if you value Stoic wisdom that sharpens clarity without bitterness or illusion, subscribe for more reflections like this. Remember, the man who knows how to be alone does not lose the capacity to love. He loses the need to pretend.